حي على فلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
لا إله إلا الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. نحمده ونصلي على رسول النبي الكريم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. قال الله تعالى في شأن حبيبي إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على سيدنا مولانا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه على سيدنا مولانا محمد المبارك صلى عليه صلاة وسلاما عليك يا سيدي يا رسول الله. Last couple of weeks we've been talking about ideology and connecting the ideologies with the politics that we see today. There's actually a more specific connection why certain ideologies were promoted by the colonial powers, by the British and whoever came into Muslim lands, and it has to do with the finality of prophethood. And so to kind of give a background first, when we spoke about Zul Khawaisra last week, and these ideologies that are deviants, at the root of them, they look at Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam as someone who can make a mistake, as someone like anyone else, like us, because we make mistakes all the time, so he can make a mistake. Or he can do something that goes against what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants him to do. And so this is at the root. And again, when we spoke about Zul Khawaisra, this was the point. He said, fear Allah, like he had done something, like Rasulullah had done something wrong. He said, do justice, like he could do something that is unjust. So this is at the root of certain ideologies. And when Rasulullah spoke about him, as he's leaving, he's disrespectful, he turns around, he's leaving, and the companions are asking, Umar is asking specifically to take him out, and Rasulullah says no, because people will say that Muhammad kills his own, and then, but he says to take a good look at him. And, I'm not going to go over the hadith again, but, he gives this description of the people that will come, who will be associated with him, who will be connected to him. But he also says that they will do takfir, meaning, declare people as kafir, and kill the people, kill the Muslims. So basically they'll declare Muslims as non-Muslims and kill them, use as an excuse to kill them. Even when you look at this aspect of things, and you look at, the politics and the colonial powers, this was something to their advantage. It was, to place these ideologies in certain positions was to their advantage, because, if the Muslims are, or if there's another group that are supposed to be Muslim who are killing the Muslims, then they don't need to kill the Muslims. They already, you know, from the inside, take care of it from the inside. So that's the whole, that's one of the advantages to that. The other aspect, of course, is, again, tied to this as well, is you change the religion itself, because Iman is based off of the love of Allah and His Messenger. In fact, Iman is the love of Allah and His Messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That is Iman. And to love Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam above everything else in creation. Again, this is Iman. To love the ones that He sallallahu alaihi wasallam loves. This is also part of Iman. So, you know, it's natural, you know, to love the one that you see as perfection. I mean, that naturally draws you to somebody. You look at them and you know, beauty is something that attracts people. Beauty of character, physical beauty, all of these beauties. And in the case of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we have perfection of beauty. So this is why, you know, when you read the descriptions of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam from the companions, what do they say? Whoever saw him suddenly was in awe of him. And then they would say that, and after meeting him, you would say that you never saw anyone like him, like the likes of him before him or after him. So again, if you can take that level of emotion down, it becomes easy to manipulate the people. And then, you know, this notion that, oh, you know, if he's like me, and people like me are born every day, and he's a prophet, then that means a prophet can be born again. This is how these ideologies eventually lead to that end. Because again, if he's not perfect, and we of course are not perfect, then the outcome eventually comes that, oh, you know, there can be another prophet. And this again is why when we look at the British, they push these ideologies. One is that these ideologies would do their work for them, as far as killing the Muslims. But then eventually, if that ideology prevails in society, then it's easy to have somebody come up and say, oh, I'm also a prophet. And then that so someone can come up and say, you know, I'm a prophet, and now jihad is mansukh. There's no more jihad. And then, you know, the colonial powers don't have to worry about anybody fighting against them. And I'm going to come back to historical aspects, which aren't too far in history, and related to why this is so important for us today as well, and why now there is a resurgence of certain movements that proclaim to have these false prophets. When we look at Islam, you know, the basis of Islam, the basis of Iman, of course, is the love of Allah and His Messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The basis for rulings in Islam, of course, is the Quran, then the Sunnah, and then you have what many people don't really understand is what's known as Ijma, and then after that you have Qiyas. And according to Imam Malik rahmatullah alayhi, you also have, you know, what the people of Medina Munawwara did. So if something is clear-cut in the Quran, then you really don't need to go any further. However, there are many things that are clear-cut in the Quran, but are also clear-cut in the Hadith. And when something is clear-cut both in the Quran and the Hadith, again, why do you need to go any further? There's no need. in reality. Ijma is, the easiest definition of ijma would be consensus. Rasulullah ﷺ said that my ummah will not have consensus on anything that is wrong. These days the word gets thrown out a lot, ijma, people talk about this is ijma or ijma, not ijma. And most of them in reality don't know what they're talking about, because ijma is not a very common thing. There are different levels of ijma, and I'm going to only, to kind of keep things short, I'm going to only talk about one, which is ijma sarih, also known as ijma nasitang, which means those who are qualified to make these decisions, all of them verbalize their opinion, and all of them have the same exact opinion. There's not a single one whose opinion differs. If there is a single one who is qualified, yet his opinion differs, you don't have ijma. You have what's known as jamhur, which means the majority. And there are many things that came up during the time of the companions of Rasulullah ﷺ, where you simply had one companion who was qualified, such as Abdullah ibn Mas'ud or Abdullah ibn Umar, who differed, and you didn't have ijma. To oppose ijma sarih, so once a true ijma is established, anyone who goes against that is out of Islam. To go against ijma sarih is kufr. As I said, I'm not, just talking about the different ijmas would be a lecture in itself. So I'm going to keep this short and kind of stick to the point here. So again, when we look at the concept of the finality of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we know from the Quran clearly this is what it states. Now I'll come to that. But there is a hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam where he says to Sayyidina Ali karamallahu wajh, he says that as I have done qital, qital is not just struggle, qital is the physical fighting struggle. He says, as I have done qital for the nuzul, for the tanzil, for the revelation of this Quran, so too you shall do qital for the ta'wil, for the correct understanding against the false and forced interpretation of the Quran. So of course, when we look at the struggle of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his whole struggle is against those who are not Muslim. And it's very easy to understand also because anyone who opposes him, of course, is not Muslim. You can't claim to be Muslim and oppose him. It becomes clear-cut who you are. However, later on, you can have somebody claiming that they believe in La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, yet coming up with some different explanation of the Quran. And this is why Rasulullah says to Ali, you will do this struggle. So that struggle is not going to be against those who claim not to be Muslim. Because if a non-Muslim comes and says, this Quran means this, who cares? But if someone claiming to be Muslim now says, this verse means this, well, now we have to look at that. So there are certain understandings where people can have a misunderstanding but still be in Islam, and we see that during the Khilafah of Sayyidina Ali karamallahu wajh. And you also have those where the misunderstanding isn't simply, you're still Muslim, you just misunderstood things. It's, you're out of Islam. And we also see that during the Khilafah of Sayyidina Ali karamallahu wajh. And we see both sides of this. Yeah. So when we look at the issue again of Khatam al-Nabiyyin, You know, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, verse number 40 of Surah Ahzab, Surah number 33. وَمَا كَانَ مُحَمَّدٌ أَبَا أَحَدٍ مِّن رِجَالِكُمْ وَلَكِنْ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ وَخَاتَمَ النَّبِيِّينَ وَكَانَ اللَّهُ بِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ عَلِيمًا. Rough translation is that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is not the father of any of the males. Rijal is adult male. So any of your adult males. He's not the father of any of your adult males. But, lakin, he is Rasulullah, he is the messenger of Allah. Wa khatam al-nabiyyin. Khatam, he is the seal of the prophets. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَكَانَ اللَّهُ بِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ عَلِيمًا, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, everything before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is known. Allah knows about everything. Okay. So when you have a clear-cut verse like this, and then you have other verses, you know, if you read verse 81 of Surah Al Imran, وَإِذَا أَخَذَ اللَّهُ مِيثَاقَ النَّبِيِّينَ لَمَا أَتَيْتُكُمْ, where, you know, the whole verse, if you read the whole verse, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that, and remember when we took a covenant from the prophets, that we will give you the book and the wisdom. And then comes to you this exalted messenger. And unfortunately there are many translators who say, come to you a messenger. And that's not what it says. It says Rasulun. The tanween here is azma, is exalted messenger. Comes to you this exalted messenger. Do you believe in him and help him? And they all said yes. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, then be witnesses over each other, and I am a witness over you all. So, but it says Rasulun, that this comes to you, this exalted messenger, who testifies to the truthfulness of what was sent to you. So by that fact itself, it means that this messenger has to come after all of them, because he has to testify to the truthfulness of everyone who came before him. And there are multiple verses in the Quran where again, indirectly you understand, and not even that indirectly, it's very clear, okay, he's the final messenger. But the verse of Surah Ahzab, Allah says, Khatam al-Nabiyyin. So many people translate that as seal, which is what it literally means. And there are others who say last, which also, in the meaning of the terms, is the same thing. We'll come back to this. Then you have multiple hadiths of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You know, we know the famous hadith where when he leaves Ali radhiyallahu behind at the time of Tabuk, and Ali radhiyallahu says, Ya Rasulullah, you're leaving me behind with the women and children. He says, is it not enough for you that you are to me like Harun was to Musa? But then he says, but la nabi abadi, lakin la nabi abadi, there is no prophet after me. He talks about his son Ibrahim, when his son Ibrahim passed. He says if he had survived, he would have been a prophet, but there's no prophet after me. And multiple other hadiths where he says, no prophet after me. As a side note, you know, later on there was this woman who declared herself a prophetess. And so the king at the time, he called her into the court and he says, Rasulullah says, La Nabi Abadi. She said, yes, I believe that. So then how can you declare yourself a prophet? He said, La Nabi Abadi. He didn't say La Nabiya Abadi. He didn't know prophetess. You know, so, you know, people are crazy. And there's no shortage of that either. So now, so you have something that is clear-cut in the Quran. You have something that is clear-cut in the Hadith. But then during the time of Abu Bakr, now you have ijma on this point. And we'll come to that in a second. So the question comes up, if you have something clear-cut in the Quran, you have something clear-cut in the Hadith, why do you need ijma? Why do you need a consensus? And the reasoning for that is that because somebody later on can come, oh no, I think this word means this. I think this word means something else. Or in my opinion, this means something different. So you have consensus to make sure that no one can later on say, oh, this could have meant something else. You know, the Quran is revealed in the language of Rasulullah. It is revealed in the language of Quraysh, and we know that amongst Quraysh you had 7 prominent dialects. And some places 10. So somebody could come later and say, well, you know, in this dialect it has this connotation. This is why when Musaylima during the time of Rasulullah he declared his prophethood. And then during the time of Abu Bakr, he gained strength in Najd. And so Abu Bakr prepares an army, 13,000 companions. 13,000 companions of Rasulullah go. But before they go, this is the question. All of the mujtahid, all of those who have the knowledge and the authority to make an opinion, truly Islamic opinion, meet, which includes Ali, Abdul Rahman bin Auf, Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, Abdullah ibn Masud, Abdullah ibn Umar, Ammar bin Yasir, all of these companions, and all of those who knew all of the dialects. And they say, no, there is no room for any question about the finality of Rasulullah. And not just his finality as far as in chronological order, but the finality of the zenith of his level. And that's important to understand here, is he's not only the final prophet in chronological order, but he is the pinnacle of prophets, above them all. He is Sayyid al-Anbiya, he is the master of all the prophets. So now, when they make this decision, and so this is ijma, so that there cannot be anyone coming later after that and saying, no, no, we think it meant something else. Now you have consensus that this is exactly what it means. So if anyone comes and says, no, this means something else, then he has in reality left Islam. Even if someone walks up to somebody who has declared himself as a prophet and asks him, give me proof of your prophethood, because he wants to, not because he wants to refute him, but because he just wants to know, or he wants to, he has this idea that maybe there could be another prophet. He has left Islam. If he's going to refute him, then that's a different issue. So now, when we have this, it's interesting, you have this ijma, but at that same time you also have another ijma that took place. The other ijma that took place is that the question came up that we're going to fight a people, because Musaylima did not stop the salat, he did not change the adhan, he did not change the iqamah. So the question now came up as to how will we recognize each other, friend from foe. And so this is where the ruling is given that the sha'ar, or this code word for this battle, will be Ya Muhammada sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And there are two reasons for using Muhammada and not Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. One is, or the main reason is, that Musaylima is also claiming to be Rasulullah. So if he said, Ya Rasulullah, they'll say, oh, we also say, just like the Qadiani, they also say, that Mirza Qadian is Rasul. Astaghfirullah. Same thing. And then Muhammada is a level of, like Isnida is where you, a strong, heartfelt request. That is why it's not Ya Muhammadu. They didn't say Ya Muhammad, they say Ya Muhammada. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And of course the battle took place in Yamama, which is slightly north, and that time the capital was slightly north of modern day Riyadh. 6 months after Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So you have this again. When we talk about the finality, and this is also why, like there's a so-called scholar, Qasim Nanatwi, who was one of the founders of one of the schools in India, Darul Uloom Deoband. And he wrote a book, Tahzir al-Nas, in which he says that, the common man thinks that Khatam al-Nabiyyin means that Rasulullah Sallallahu is the last prophet. But Ahl Ilm, those people of knowledge, they know that there is no virtue in being the last of anything. What it means is that he is the pinnacle of the prophets. And so if a prophet comes after him, it wouldn't change him being Khatam al-Nabiyyin. This is how he explains this, which again contradicts the ijma of the companions of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And not just any ijma sarih, which to go against ijma sarih, as we mentioned before, is kufr. And the interesting thing is, it wasn't long after he wrote this book that Mirza Qadiani declared himself, oh, I'm a prophet. And of course, part of the argument is, well, what about Isa alayhi salam? Isa alayhi salam is going to come. Isa alayhi salam already came. This is also why Isa alayhi salam in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when he talks about Isa alayhi salam, he says, Isa ibn Maryam. Isa ibn Maryam, Isa ibn Maryam, Isa ibn Maryam. Why does he keep saying Isa ibn Maryam? Because he knew, Allah knows, there will be many Isas. Many people claiming to be Isa, just like Mirza Qadiani also claimed. He said, oh, I'm Isa. But then Qadian also had a father, and his mother's name was something different. You're not Isa ibn Maryam. And Isa ibn Maryam alayhi salam was raised up. He already came, he's raised up without his soul being taken, without tasting death. And when he comes, he will not come, even though he is a prophet, but he will not come in the office of prophethood. This is why when his army and the army of Imam Mahdi al-Islam meet, and it will be time for Salat, and Mahdi al-Islam will ask Isa al-Islam to lead the Salat, Isa al-Islam will say, no. You will lead the Salat because you are from the lineage of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. This is to emphasize also that he's not here in the authority of a prophet, even though he is a prophet. He is here in the authority of the follower of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. We may talk a little bit more about this next week because there are other aspects of it that we haven't covered. But again, this is why, because Mirza Qadian, he also gives this fatwa that, oh, jihad is mansukh, which is exactly what the British wanted. Because now, oh, you can't fight against the British. You can't fight against those occupying your land. You can't fight against the oppressors. And before that, they had certain scholars give the fatwa that, oh, you can't do jihad against Ahl Kitab. Same reason, because they didn't want people fighting against them. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from this fitna, and may He fill our hearts with His love and the true love of His beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his family, his companions, and all of those whom they love, and may He give strength and victory to our brothers and sisters in Philistine over their oppressors. Those who are not made sunnah, go and make sunnah.